بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Today inshallah we are going to take listening from flinghigh4. It's
Unit 5.
the lesson2, knowing the market. We are going to continue what we have discussed at the previous episode, which was about marketing and everything connected with marketing. Today, inshallah, we are going to do listening and speaking. But before any listening, when you are going to apply listening task, you have to follow specific step. First of all, when you are going to do any task of listening, as I told you, you have to read the questions which are related to the track. You have to read them very well. You have try as much as you can to understand every question. Because if you misunderstand the question, as a result of that, you will misunderstand the answer itself. So it's very important to read the question before start listening. And as a general tip, I always ask my student to focus and try to concentrate while they are listening. Try to use any way that help you to concentrate. If you are an example of a person that need to close their eyes when they are listening, do it. If you are the type of a person who just gaze on a certain point in front of him or her, try to do it. In order to really understand the track or the audio as much as you possible. And before listening, before we are going to start, I want from you to read the question which is already in your book. Try to read them. And decide whether of these statements are true, whether of them are false. So true, as you know, it's correct. False, it's wrong. We are going to hear the beginning of a lecture about changes in advertising. Before you listen, decide if you think these statements are true, T, or false, F. The first one, advertising is a fairly modern invention. Do you think it's true or false? Advertising is a fairly modern invention. Number two, advertising became big business in the 20th century. What do you think? Before listening, you try to guess try to answer this question. Advertising became big business in the 20th century. From your information, do you think this sentence is true or false? Number three, in the 20th century, advertisements were mainly targeted at rich and famous people. Is it true or false? Number four, sports stars were used to promote products. Is it true or false? What do you think? You have to answer according to your information before listening. This kind of listening task depend on, as I told you, in your information, and after listening we are going to correct our information if they are not correct. The last one is about modern advertising largely ignores concerns about the environment and health. So we are going to listen to the track. As I told you, follow my tips as much as you can. So we are going to play the track.
Unit 5, Lesson 3. In this lecture, I propose to look at the changing face of advertising. Advertising, as you are all aware, is probably as old as civilization. It was certainly known in the ancient civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, but it wasn't until the 20th century that it became big business, that it became the image industry. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, traditionally, advertising was based on the product. Such and such washing powder makes your clothes cleaner, such and such food item tasted better, and so on. No, the shift that occurred last century was away from the product and towards the people who used the product. Advertisements more and more hinted that use of the product could associate the consumer with the rich and the famous. More and more, sports stars were used to promote products. And as disposable incomes increased, so did the advertising sector aim for the luxury market. Holidays abroad, expensive cars, designer mobile phones, and so on. All based on the fact that more and more people could afford to live a relatively rich and famous consumer lifestyle. But the 21st century has seen subtle changes. People are generally worried about health problems, healthy eating, and so on, and environmental issues, global warming, animal experimentation. And so we are seeing a gradual shift in the emphasis of advertising. This car uses less fuel. That soap has not been tested on animals. Now, I'd like to demonstrate this by showing you some TV advertisements from the 1960s and their equivalent versions in the 21st century.
As usual, you have to listen to any track more than 2 times at least, because at the first, don't expect yourself you will find the whole answers immediately. Try to listen to it twice or more than twice. You can repeat, or the teacher should repeat it more than twice. So I will repeat it again and try to listen carefully.
Unit 5, Lesson 3. In this lecture, I propose to look at the changing face of advertising. Advertising, as you are all aware, is probably as old as civilization. It was certainly known in the ancient civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, but it wasn't until the 20th century that it became big business, that it became the image industry. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, traditionally, advertising was based on the product. Such and such washing powder makes your clothes cleaner, such and such food item tasted better, and so on. No, the shift that occurred last century was away from the product and towards the people who used the product. Advertisements more and more hinted that use of the product could associate the consumer with the rich and the famous. More and more, sports stars were used to promote products. And as disposable incomes increased, so did the advertising sector aim for the luxury market. Holidays abroad, expensive cars, designer mobile phones, and so on. All based on the fact that more and more people could afford to live a relatively rich and famous consumer lifestyle. But the 21st century has seen subtle changes. People are generally worried about health problems, healthy eating, and so on, and environmental issues, global warming, animal experimentation. And so we are seeing a gradual shift in the emphasis of advertising. This car uses less fuel. That soap has not been tested on animals. Now, I'd like to demonstrate this by showing you some TV advertisements from the 1960s and their equivalent versions in the 21st century.
Okay, this kind, as I told you, of tracks and audio script or audio, you will never find the answer directly. It's depend on your understanding. If you got the ideas of the track, you find the answers very easy. What do you think of the first statement? Advertising is a fairly modern invention. Do you think advertising a modern invention? What do you think? I think it's false. Let's find out if it's false or true. The next one, advertising become a big business in the 20th century, especially nowadays. I think it's a huge business among the people who become or depend on the advertising, and they increase their income through this business. So I think it's true. Number 3, in the 20th century, advertisement were mainly targeted at rich and famous people. Do you think that they only targeted rich and famous people? Sports stars were used to promote products, even at the old days, before a lot of years. A lot of famous sports stars, made a lot of advertisement, or they use it as an image for some product. And number 5, modern advertising largely ignores concerns about the environment and health. Let's see the answers. I hope you all find out the correct answer. So number 1, it is F, false. It's not true, so it's not modern invention. Number 2, it's true. Yes, it's 100% true, especially nowadays. Number 3, it's false. It's not true. They target all of people, not specifically rich and famous people. And number 4, also sports stars were used to promote products. It's true. And one of our stars, Majid Abdullah, present such a thing in the past. One of the commercial company used his image to promote his its product. And number 5, it's false. It's concerned about the environment and health. I don't think so. So the correct answers are, I hope you all find out the correct answers. If you find difficulty from the speed of the lecturer, you can find, or you can read the audio script, the track at the other side of the page. It's already written, and you can even that if you have a written script with the track, it's help you to improve your ability to read. While you are listening, try to read with the speaker. It will help you, as I told you, to ability to speak, ability to read fast, and so on. And you will find yourself after that, after more than such a thing, you will find yourself very good in reading and in speaking as well. Let's move to the other part of the task in listening. Here we have the question, what does the man mean by it wasn't until 20th century that it became the image industry? What does he mean by this phrase? It wasn't until the 20th century that it became the image industry. Is there image industry? Do you think there is image industry? He means, when he said so, that in the 20th century, advertising moved from the product itself to the image of the people who used it. And it's very clear nowadays, a lot of influencers, celebrities, stars, actors, all of them, they really depend, or they really represent, or they get used of the image of the people who used at the product or the items. So the meaning of this phrase, he means that in 20th century advertising moved from the product to the image of the people who used it. Number 2, why does he say that advertising is changing? Why he said so? So I think because people are becoming more concerned with issues concerning health and the environment, and a lot of products mention if they tested their product on animals or not, because the aware of people become more bigger than before, because the health issues, the environmental issues, a lot of people really believe in the animals' rights, and they against to test any product on animals. For that reason, the whole company is changed or has changed. The whole company of advertising is changed than before. Before there were not such awareness about this issue, but nowadays all people become very aware about the human rights, the animal rights. For that reason, the industry of advertising has changed a lot. This is about the listening. I hope you find out the answer. You can answer at the both questions from your own sentence. From your own sentences, it's not necessary to be the same sentence. You can find out or you can use your own sentence to find the correct answer. And it's very good if you really answer it by your own, by yourself, and use your own words. Let's move to the other part of the grammar. As you know, here we at the previous episode we have talking about talking about the passive and active, and I have mentioned that when we use active, we emphasize, or we want to know more about the subject, who did the action. It's very important for the person, the person who is talking, and the receiver to know the subject or the person who did the action. But in the passive, it's not important to know the doer or the subject. It's not neglected, but it's not the whole matter is the receiver and the action itself. And we form the passive and active according a specific way. We have to start with the object, then followed with correct helping verb. Then we have to put the verb in past participle. The verb in past participle, it's essential when you are going to form or to change any active sentence to passive. And also, one thing you have to pay attention to when you form or use the passive is used more often in formal language. What I mean by formal language? Formal language, it means that when you are writing and you want to write down a speech or academical things, you have to use, this is what we call it formal language, or in Arabic اللي هي اللغة الرسمية, especially writing than in formal language. So it's command to use the passive than the active in formal language. And language and speech. However, speakers do have the option of using either active or passive. It's the speaker himself, he have the option. He can use the active or the passive. So expect when the doer is not known. Sometimes we don't know who did the action. We don't know. We really don't know, and we can use the passive in this case. In this case, the passive is preferred. For example, in the sentence, Muhammad Ali is including in that number, we don't know who exactly includes him. Who put Muhammad Ali in that number? We don't know. Is it important more than mention Muhammad Ali? No. The most important thing is that we mentioned Muhammad Ali is included, so in that number. So the receiver is more important than the doer, and we really don't know the doer, so we use the passive tense in this case. We don't know who exactly includes him and who the doer is, so we use the passive. In very simple way, if you are not, you don't know the doer, the person who did the action, just use the passive voice. We use specific steps before change or before using. As I told you, you have to start your own sentence with the object, then put a helping verb, the correct helping verb according to the tense, then followed with the past participle of the verb. If it's necessary to mention the doer or the subject, if you think it's important, you can mention it after the word by. But it's not necessary at all to mention. Sometimes it's not necessary, and as I told you, the passive is used more often in formal language, especially in writing, and we can use it in informal language. Here we have exercise about this topic. How can we use active and passive? Yani some of these sentences we have or position we have to use active. Sometimes we have to use the passive. Complete the text with appropriate forms, active or passive, of the verbs in practice. From Jack Hallstrom to Graham Martin. The subject, Alpine Crunch promotion. Here it's a memo written by Jack to Graham. Hi Graham, I almost finished the promotion report. Pay attention here. He mentioned I. I is the subject, is the person who do the action. For that reason, I think we have to use what? Active or passive? You have to be very careful of the part of the speech of the sentence. If we have a subject, it means that no need to use the passive. If we don't have, it's unclear or it's omitted or it's not mentioned, the doer, only the receiver or the object, you have to use the passive. So try to focus on this point. Number 2, he mentioned again, I send it to you at least an hour before the meeting tomorrow. For your information, the main points summarize below. The main points, what do you think? Shall we use active or passive? Here we have the verb. As I told you before, it's very important to know the past participle of every single verbs, because you know, if you some of the verb are regulars, some of them are irregulars, and don't depend on the regular verbs. Sometimes you will face different forms of irregular verbs, so you have to know the forms of the irregular verbs. Here we have, last week, Hal Thompson employee to make a series of the new TV commercial promo studios. Promo Studios, I'm sorry, this is a new sentence, beginning of the another sentence. Promo Studios have them ready for next month. These commercials show on all major channels in the afternoon right through the autumn, winter and spring. Stills from the commercials used in new magazine advertisement, new packaging for Alpine Crunch. So here we have another word or another verb use. A new packaging for Alpine Crunch design at the moment. It go into production next month, and it's referred to new packaging for Alpine Crunch. Instead of mention it a lot, we just refer to it with the pronoun it, and it be the shops just before the TV campaign began in that autumn. The retail price of Alpine Crunch then reduced by 100% to coincide with the beginning of the TV campaign. Sales expect to rise by the least or at least 2,500% during the campaign, and increase should sustain for a good period after that. So the correct answer will be, here we have number 1, it's active. As I told you before, I have almost finished. So I have almost finished. Number 2, it's also active. So we have to say will send. I will send. Number 3 is the main points are summarized, or we can say have been summarized. Both of the answers are correct. So it's passive because we don't know who did so. Last week, Hal Thompson was employed to make a series. Who employed him? Also, it's not mentioned. So we use an active statement. Promo Studios will have, or it's okay to say are going to have them ready for the next month. These commercial will be shown. Also, it's a passive voice on all major because we are concentrate on the receiver, not the doer. And number 7 will be used a new magazine. Number 8 is being designed. Designed is a regular verb ending with ed, so it's easy to form. Number 9 will go or will be going or is going. It's an active. So here we have number 9. Number 10, it will be, and number 11 begins. Number 12 will be reduced. Here also this verb is regular. A regular verb, it's super easy. Just add ed or d at the end of the verb if you know the form of the verb. And number 13 are expected. Sales are expected. It's also passive. And number 14, also it's be sustained. So we add ed at the end of the verb because it's regular. So I hope you all get benefit from this lesson and enjoy this episode. If you have any difficulty, you can find a lot of explanation in any website. And inshallah, we join tomorrow with another episode. Your teacher Shahnaz Hayyan.